Hi everyone. So today's video is going to be on the 3 ways to better manage your anxiety. And I don't think anyone has gone through life without experiencing some bouts of anxiety, even depression. The length and the term of said phase can vary. I think for myself, I have mostly always been an anxious person, just being raised in a household where I had a parent that was extremely anxious, and having to sort of always walk on eggshells around them has always sort of kept me on guard and has really activated my fight or flight system more than necessary, more than it probably needed to be. And, you know, just going through life and experiencing like bullying has really over time affected my self-esteem. And so there was a period of time in my life, especially I would say navigating like high school, moving into college, university, there was a lot more anxiety at the core, just sort of trying to find my place in society, trying to find my place in the world, and, you know, navigating that self-actualization. And with that, eventually in hindsight came reflection. But anxiety is something that can be very crippling. It is, to me, in every sense of the word, being in a state of fear, worrying about either the past or worrying about the future. And a great way to sort of meet anxiety in the middle is to find ways to be grounded. And so we're gonna explore some of what being grounded looks like, centering ourselves, allowing ourselves to stay in the present moment and not allowing the what ifs that might not even ever happen, or the things that have already happened that we cannot change, to be set free, to let that go, and to sort of more so focus on like what is happening now, what is working now, how can I tune back into the body, into my breath, into the present moment to find sanctity and to find peace and to find wholeness. So, and of course, anxiety, it's not something that we can ever sort of eliminate. These are just regular emotions that we will experience being humans on this planet. I think I see it as like something that's on a spectrum where it can show up slightly different for everyone. So the first thing that you really want to do is identify first what anxiety looks like. And for the longest time, I never really identified as being someone that had anxiety. But looking back in hindsight, just with taking a year off in 2022 due to some health issues and seeing a lot of anxiety creep up, in hindsight, looking back at my life, I realized that there was actually a lot of anxiety. You know, the incessant overthinking, the crippling thoughts, you know, maybe not as bad to the degree of others, but there definitely was anxiety there. And at times still anxiety is there. And I think I've just been able to lean on certain tools and resources that have really helped. So I think, like I said, when it comes to identifying anxiety, it's really great to go inwards and to specifically feel into your body, because your body will tell you when it feels uncomfortable. And a lot of the times we don't listen to our bodies. We don't know how to listen to our bodies and to also listen to our intuition. It's sort of twofold. And it's very hard to tap into your intuition and to trust when you are overthinking, when you have all these different voices in your head telling you different things, and you're scared to take a step forward because of some irrational consequence that might happen or might come from it, or just weighing on the guilt and the shame of something that has happened in the past. And so it's very hard for you to think clearly and to move forward. So I like to find hints and signs of anxiety through how my body acts and responds to it. And for me, that looks like not getting proper sleep. Insomnia is something that I have dealt with for the past couple years. Sometimes I have really, really bad dreams. I think most of my life, like especially my adult years, I found like I tend to have a lot more nightmares, and that is just a reflection of my subconscious and a lot of things that I still need to work on personally. And I think that is a clear sign that there may be some anxiety and depression there that my subconscious is still trying to work through, which is fine. We all, you know, anxiety shows up in so many different ways. So for me, you know, my lack of sleep, how I sleep, the type of dreams that I have can be an indication for me that there is some fear there that is standing in the way of me being able to live freely and authentically and to be at peace. And last year I took time off because I was going through BFS. I technically still am going through BFS, benign fasciculation syndrome, and it is where your body randomly sort of starts to twitch, like the muscles start to twitch and have like certain spasms, and like you don't know when it's gonna happen. And a lot of the symptoms have sort of died down. I don't get as much twitching now because I've done, you know, a lot more detoxing. I've had to ground myself a lot and dive into some of these mindfulness and relaxation tools and techniques that I am about to share with you. But I also had a year of, you know, really bad twitching. I still get it once in a blue moon, so I think it's on its way out. But at the time that I had twitching, I was going through a very stressful period in my life, just in terms of dating and also my business, where I was starting to show up on larger platforms, and that could be very like anxiety ridden for me, because as much as I do a lot of public speaking, it's actually one of my fears, speaking in front of crowds. And I get very anxious and nervous, and although people tell me I'm really good at it, you know, leading up to that event, it's always nerve-wracking for me. Sometimes I'll lose sleep right before doing like a presentation. Even when I think back to like high school, I would like, before speaking, I would feel like my heart beating out of my chest. I'm like shaking, nervous sweats, feeling gassy, like that is something, like those are some of the signs that show I'm incredibly anxious. But more subtle signs of it can just look like, you know, being very tired, fatigued, not getting enough sleep. I feel just like a bit restless in my body. Like like you just can tell when your body's feeling restless, you know, like you're pacing more often. And I do feel like I've never been diagnosed, but I do feel like there are hints of like ADHD that might speak to the restlessness and just being a bit scattered at times. But overall, that's just how my body responds to stress, to anxiety. Definitely that restlessness, not feeling centered or grounded, really on edge, right? Just really on edge. I'm not able to relax. And so it might look different for you, but I think definitely identifying, okay, how does anxiety look and feel to me? Because it may look slightly different to you versus somebody else. And I think once you're able to identify like, ooh, I'm in a situation and I'm feeling very anxious right now, I feel very restless, I feel very uncomfortable, my head hurts, my hands are shaking, you know, I feel nauseous, like those can be clear signs of anxiety, right? Sometimes it's necessary anxiety. Maybe it's like, you know, like I said, like public speaking, for example. Maybe it's a presentation that's really important to you that you have to do. You're still gonna have nerves around it and you're not gonna die from doing it, right? And it's sort of like coaching yourself and letting you know, like, I am safe, this is gonna go really well, and sort of trying to calm the nerves in that sense. But if it is something that wasn't predetermined, it's something that will create further trauma in your life, I think that is where anxiety really takes hold and it's at its worst. The moments where it's unexpected, where you're thrown into a situation that puts you in danger and you feel very out of place, you feel very out of control. That is sort of the anxiety that I'm more so speaking to in this video. But you know, I think being able to discern whether this is necessary anxiety because it's helping me work towards a certain goal or developing a skill or just helping me to become a better person, you know, pushing past your fears and sort of going a little bit outside of your comfort zone can be beneficial and can actually help you see great things come to fruition in your life. But there's also a double-edged sword where anxiety can, if you don't have a hold on it, can create further turmoil and discontentment within your life, and can lead you to make very poor decisions because you're not making decisions clearly. You're making decisions when you're in a state of fear, and making decisions in a state of fear will never reap, oftentimes won't really reap the best results, right? And then sometimes you might find yourself spiraling and creating further trauma and further challenges in your life because you're allowing fear to sort of lead the way in how you show up within your relationships, your finances, at work, whatever the case may be. So let's get into it. So these tools have been lifesavers for me in the midst of very stressful, anxiety-ridden situations. Of course, you may not be able to use these tools right in the moment. Of course, feel it through whatever you're experiencing, go through it. You're, allowed to cry and throw a fit and feel crippled by the situation. But it's always what you do after you're in a negative or challenging, confronting situation. So I'm talking about the after, right? It is very helpful to use some of these tools to bring you sort of back to calm, to feel centered, and to feel balanced. You eventually can try to bring these techniques into the moment, but it's obviously very hard to catch ourselves in the moment, to be aware and conscious how we're feeling, especially if we're not used to being tapped into our bodies and we've undergone and have experienced a lot of trauma in our lives. I know for me that is very true, very real. And so let's get into it, right? So mindfulness and relaxation techniques, one can definitely look like meditation. And I think this has been such a great and powerful tool. And a lot of people have started to get on board with some of these more Eastern traditions and ways of being and finding wholeness and wellness on not just a physical level, but an emotional, mental, and spiritual. And the great thing about meditation is that there's so much science that has been done on it now. I think before people would just think of, oh, people doing meditation is maybe like a monk in like the middle of a forest and in and out of a higher state of consciousness and finding healing that way. But it's like, how do you really measure that? How can we really see that it's actually helping and it's not just someone just making up something in their mind or it's some sort of placebo effect? So a lot of studies have finally been showing that meditation has, oh my God, it can help in so many ways. And when it comes to anxiety, the fact that meditation has been known and has been concluded to reduce stress is maybe the greatest result that can come from doing studies on this powerful tool. Meditation, it is technically sitting in a spot, finding somewhere where it is quiet, where you can be in silence. And I think for a lot of people that's hard, and a lot of the reasons why a lot of people kind of don't get into meditation or don't give it a chance because they feel like they're supposed to be sitting and meditating for an hour, cross-legged, not thinking about anything. You're really supposed to quiet your thoughts. But in the beginning, it's going to be really hard to quiet your thoughts because your mind is really used to constant chatter and negativity and all of that stuff. But eventually over time, I suggest starting in small batches. Start with 5 minutes a day. Download an app, a meditation app, try 5 minutes of meditation. And if you do that every day consistently, over time, you will be able to meditate for longer and longer and longer. And eventually you may not even need an app. Maybe you're able to go to a park and meditate, or sit in silence in your room and be able to meditate, whether it's with music or not. You'll eventually find the best way for you to find stillness. And I think meditation is a great way to do that. I started meditating maybe about 5-6 years ago. That was sort of at the start of my spiritual journey. I learned it alongside doing yoga whenever I would do yoga classes at my university gym. And it has been such an incredible tool and such a great way for me to recenter. To be honest, I haven't been the best with it. I haven't been doing it every day, but I think I found other ways to be mindful. And so that was gonna be sort of my next sort of suggestion, right? If meditation is really hard for you to get into, a cousin to that or a relative to that is breath work. And I really love breath work because it's really just focusing, although meditation, you are still focusing on the breath, or, you know, meditation, really you're focusing on just one fixed point. It could be literally sitting and staring at a candle. But as long as you are trying to quiet down those thoughts, you can walk and meditate at the same time, you know, but when it comes to deep breathing, you're more so focused on the rhythm and the sequence of your breath. So you are controlling your breath. When you're meditating, you're not so much controlling it, you're letting it naturally go in and out. But with deep breathing, with breath work, you are doing a sequence of breaths. And depending on how you breathe, it can actually stimulate more energy in the body, or it can relax you and sort of activate that parasympathetic nervous system, which is the system that relaxes you, that de-stresses you, that brings your body to a certain level of calm. When you're in fight or flight mode and you're excited or you're anxious, you're running away from danger, that is your sympathetic nervous system. And so we want to wield and equip ourselves with tools that can help us activate the parasympathetic nervous system. So breathwork can look like, you know, for example, holding in your breath for 8 seconds at a time, holding it at the top, and then breathing it out for like 4 seconds and then repeating that. The longer you exhale, the more relaxing it is. The longer you inhale, the more exciting it is, and the more that it stimulates you and provides energy. So it just depends on like what you need at that point in time. Breathwork, I highly recommend looking into that. And we have yoga, maybe even going for a walk, going to the gym. I mean, the gym is, I would say it's a little bit more aggressive of like somatic movement work. But yoga is a little bit more relaxing. It's more stretching while also focusing on the breath. So it's a great way, especially anyone who's experienced a lot of trauma in regards to like physical trauma in regards to the body. Yoga can be very great of getting yourself back into the body and finding presence through that means. I'm gonna do a video on my experience with therapy because it has been such rewarding work and such a rewarding journey, having a licensed professional work with me through my blocks, my limiting beliefs, my trauma, just being able to accomplish certain goals, finding self-esteem and self-love, and dating. Those are my reasons for going through therapy, as well as anxiety, depression, just being more confident in myself overall as I navigate the complexities of life. But therapy is such a great tool and such a great way to kind of nip anxiety in the butt and to actually be more, I guess, proactive about anxiety. Instead of having life happen to you, you're a bit more intentional about how you respond to life situations instead of letting it sort of overwhelm you. So with therapy, a lot of people see therapy as just, oh, I'm gonna go to a therapist and just talk about my life, and they'll just like ask me questions and I just respond and continue talking about my life. But there are different types of therapy. So there's talk therapy, and I've heard of a lot of people being like, well, I don't really want to go to therapy because I'm able to rationalize and I'm really able at like just being aware of like what I'm doing, and that's great. I feel like a lot of people have the ability to do that. So maybe talk therapy is not for you and it won't be as helpful. When it comes to dealing with your subconscious, a lot of what comes up in the subconscious, you don't catch until later. It's always something that's in hindsight. And a lot of how we actually navigate life is controlled through our subconscious, which can be scary because I think there was like a number, I think it's like 95% of our actions are based on our subconscious. So we're not even conscious of a lot of the things that we're doing and how we're responding to situations. That's why like really trauma runs our lives. And if you're not getting the necessary help to work through those traumas, whether it's childhood traumas, traumas that have come up through life, through adulthood, it can really cripple you. And you won't realize it's crippling you until you look back in hindsight. And maybe by then, it's a bit too late. So cognitive behavioral therapy is one form of therapy, and EMDR, I would say, are the two therapies that people should, after doing talk therapy, or if talk therapy doesn't feel like it's enough, people should really look into. And cognitive behavioral therapy is just a highly effective therapeutic approach for managing anxiety. It helps you to identify and challenge negative thought patterns and replace them with more rational, positive ones. And so your therapist who specializes in cognitive behavioral therapy will help you develop healthier coping strategies and set realistic goals that can help you to gradually face anxiety-inducing situations over time. By being able to be more aware of when anxiety is showing up and being able to reprogram the way that you respond to it. And EMDR is another form of therapy as well, where it's really all about desensitizing yourself to the traumas of the past so that it no longer has a leading role in the way that you respond to situations. A lot of the times we make decisions based on really crippling things that have happened to us in the past. And so because of that, our body remembers it. Our body stores trauma. And if we think that, for example, I like to use dating as an example, right? If you've been really badly burned or hurt in a relationship, that's trauma. And moving forward in the next relationship, you're gonna bring that baggage and that trauma with you. And that can, whether you mean to or not, that can negatively affect the future relationship in which you want to attract, or the relationship in which you have but is suffering because you are constantly triggered and you maybe don't know how to best respond to these situations. So doing EMDR helps you to sort of numb the negative thought patterns and emotions that come with a certain experience in your path. And it is super, super, super powerful. Your body literally has such visceral response to the stories that you were retelling to your therapist as you are stimulating parts of your body. So EMDR also encompasses bilateral stimulation. So it's either looking left and right or tapping on opposite sides of your body as you're retelling a story or a traumatic situation. And for some reason, studies have shown that this actually helps you to become less triggered and sensitized to the situation over time. And I would say, outside of therapy, last but not least, is catering to lifestyle needs. And self-care is gonna be really important when it comes to anxiety. We don't realize how integrative our health is. And we can't just look at our mental health from the lens of just a mental perspective. We have to look at it from a physical, from a social standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint. And I think as a whole, when we're talking about improving our relationship with anxiety or depression or just our mental health overall, we need to look at some of these core things, right? 5 core things. I would say your exercise, physical movement, really making sure that you're moving your body, whether that's through exercise or yoga, going for a walk. But movement is so powerful because a lot of our energy can get stuck in certain places in our body. And when we intentionally move our bodies, it helps to move that stagnant energy around. Actually, a great cathartic way to move through a very stressful period or incident can be dance. And I think that's why for me, growing up, dance has been such a powerful tool. Like moving my body intentionally in a way where it feels so freeing. After I'm done dancing, whether it's in my room or like I'm going to a party or a club, like I feel so good about myself when I'm dancing. I don't think you can ever dance and feel bad, right? So dancing can be such a great way to release stuck and tense emotions. And even if it's not dance, like I said, it's any other way that you intentionally want to move your body, can be very helpful with moving around stagnant energy. And it's also just overall just great for your health, right? Doctors recommend at least getting 30 minutes of exercise every day. And if you can do that and even more, great. Then we look at diet. Oh my gosh, diet is so overlooked. There have been so much studies that show the relationship between brain health and gut health, and we actually have more nerves in our gut than we have in our brain. So you are what you eat. When people talk about what are you putting in your body, what you put in your body is what you put back out into the world is so true. If you are eating junk food all the time, high fat, high sugar, foods just filled with preservatives and pesticides and like really toxic chemicals, that is the life that you were gonna create. It is, you're creating this mirror of like, well, if this is what I think I deserve to put in my body, if this is how I'm gonna treat my body, well, this is how my body is gonna treat me in return. And so we need to be very mindful of our diet, making sure that we're consuming a balanced diet filled with fruits, rich in fruits and vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins, whatever it may be. Of course, avoiding excessive caffeine, alcohol. I actually haven't drank alcohol in like 3-4 years, which is crazy because I used to be that girl throwing 10 shots of tequila back to back. But I found like just really focusing on my health over the past couple of years has really helped with, you know, my anxiety and my depression and just feeling better about myself, you know, and really not allowing life to get me down because I'm feeding my body with soul food, food with purpose, moving my body with purpose. Sleep is another one. So I started off this video talking about how sometimes I can tell that I'm going through anxiety when I'm not getting proper sleep, or the types of dreams that I have. I can tell that I'm working through something in my subconscious, and sleep is really important. So really trying to have a schedule. I try my best to get at least 8-9 hours of sleep a day. If I can get more, even better. The more consistent you are, the better. So just like sticking with the regular bedtime, which is something that I kind of struggle with. Like, especially right now, I've been staying with my boyfriend here in Jersey City, and he goes to sleep really late. And I used to be that person that would go to sleep really late. I'm kind of a night owl, but because of my business, I really had to change the way that I operate and show up for myself and for the world. And the earlier I get up, the better, because I get more done. And so I have been someone that's been shifting more to becoming a morning person, whether I want to or not. But it's also the quietest time in the morning before everyone gets up, where I can meditate and do those things and cater to myself. So I try to go to bed like by 9. Doesn't always happen. Latest will be like maybe 11 or 12 is really pushing it. But, you know, also for me, the great thing about being self-employed, having my own business, is that I can wake up anytime. And so I still make sure to get that 8-9 hours. But if you're someone that like you need to get up at 6, like you have, you know, you have a workplace to go to, really making sure that you set boundaries around that bedtime, so yeah, that you can get adequate amount of sleep. Limiting stress. Oh my gosh. This really comes down to setting boundaries. When you are being a yes man or a yes woman to everybody, that is going to burn you out. You do not need to say yes to everything. You need to know what can be done and what can't, and what is going to exert you. And I think just really limiting stressful people, situations in your life. And that is actually my last point when it comes to lifestyle changes and self-care is, you know, your social circle. What are the strong social connections that you have that actually uplift you, that support you to be a better person? And what connections are draining you? What connections are holding you back from living a more fulfilling life? If there are people in your life that cause you so much stress, so much toxicity, every time you're around them or you're with them, these are people that you eventually are going to want to weed out, right? And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have any slight challenges in your life when it comes to relationships with family, friends, with romantic partners. They will be there. But if they aren't being healthily resolved and they are taking up more energy in a negative way than in a positive way, then I think you need to sit back and reflect as to how are these connections serving me? And yeah, you know, I think with that being said, I just want you to remember that managing your anxiety is a very personal journey, and however you want to go about it, there's no wrong way. If you were taking the active steps through, you know, meditating or doing yoga, or maybe it's just eating better and getting better sleep, finding support, whether that's through therapists or just finding strong social connections that uplift you and want to see you be better, hanging around people that make you feel good about yourself and bring joy into your life, like that is going to be important. And what works for me may not work for you, but I think if you're able to kind of take bits and pieces and play around with these suggestions, these tools and these resources and these exercises, you eventually will find a happy place. You will find a place where, you know, when I'm in a stressful situation or I'm feeling anxious, how to bring yourself back out of that and find peace and contentment and feel grounded in the current day, in the present day, but then also moving forward. And if you really love this video and you found it to be very helpful, you already know what to do. Please like and subscribe. And also join my bi-weekly newsletters, join my mailing list. Everything's in the description below. And I hope to see you guys again soon for another video. Bye.